Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we're looking at various jobs and how they affect the world around us. Today's case is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk to a member of the House of Florida Representatives. Do you have any idea what a House member does? Well, neither do I. But hey, let's talk to this person and find out. Let me introduce our next guest, the one, the only, the amazing Representative Anna Eskamani. Thank you for being on the show.
Wow, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Okay, so U.S. is a District 42 member of the Florida House of Representatives. Can you explain to the listeners exactly what does that mean?
Yeah, I know it's a lot of words that we don't often put together. So what does it mean? So I'm actually your state representative, which means that I represent an area of Florida in the state capital, in Tallahassee. And so I go up to Tallahassee about 4 months of the year where we work on policy that impacts the state along with the state budget. I also help with constituent services. So if you're ever having a challenge with a state agency, we're there to be at liaison. And really at the end of the day, Tiberius, we're just trying to help solve problems. We're trying to help make government work for people versus get in the way.
Okay. Well, I'm taking a civics class, and we're learning a lot about the political world. What got you interested in working in politics, and in particular the House of Representatives?
Well, as you know, things are pretty polarizing right now. But I really was attracted to politics for the good parts of it, right? The notion of being able to help people and try to be a connector to help people reach their fullest potential. And my entryway into it was really untraditional. I grew up in Orlando as the daughter of working class immigrants. So both of my parents were actually immigrants, but met in Orlando working at the same donut shop. And I have a twin sister. I have a big brother as well. We went to Orange County Public Schools, and we were just trying to make ends meet as a family. My parents sacrificed a lot for my siblings and I to have a better chance and to be able to achieve the American dream. And unfortunately, my family had many challenges. My parents worked multiple jobs, make ends meet. And then my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she passed away when I was 13, which was a big loss for our family, but also it was a reminder for me to honor those no longer with us through action and to really try to find a purpose that could make my mom proud. And when I think about just her selflessness every single day, she instilled that in me. So when I got to UCF, where I went to undergrad, I knew I wanted to get involved in community service. And I also credit my AP government teachers. A big shout out to all of our teachers out there. Mr. Norris helped me understand that the personal is political and that it's really important for young people to get more civically involved. And he inspired me to minor in political science, which eventually became my major. And then I ended up working in advocacy for about 6 years before I ultimately decided to run for office, the first-time candidate back in 2018.
Well, I've seen the School Rock video on how a bill was made into a law, but how do you come up with the ideas of what laws to make?
You know what? I actually think Schoolhouse Rock does a pretty good job in breaking it down. But a lot of people think about how a bill becomes law on the federal level, like what happens in D.C. And of course, my focus is more the state capital. It's more Tallahassee. And so where do ideas come from? Well, a lot of times, ideas come from constituents. In fact, one of the bills that I filed this year is focused on veterans issues. And I learned about the issue because I spoke to a veterans group out of Sarasota County, and they brought this issue to my attention. And then I connected to my local VSO, and I have now filed House Bill 1351, which is going to stop these predatory for-profit companies from targeting our veterans for their benefits. And so that idea literally came from the community that reached out to a lawmaker. We had a good conversation, and I was able to actually put it into paper form as a bill and get it filed.
Writing as well.
Yeah. Now, I will say the process isn't always that simple. Sometimes bill ideas come from different special interests, different lobbyists. Sometimes bills come from the governor's office. Sometimes bills come from different states. So a bill can have a very unique origin story, but its process throughout the legislature is similar. It gets assigned to different committees. It has to get approval of those committees and eventually get to the House floor or the Senate floor.
Yeah. I think 90% of bills die in committee.
Yeah.
That's how many are made.
Well said. Yeah. No, I mean, there's over 1,000 bills that are filed in the legislature. I actually do have restrictions too. I can't file more than 7 bills every year. But to your point, yeah, most bills never actually make it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what's your average daily schedule while working in session? And is the work outside the session just as time consuming?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty hectic. And actually, it's technically a part-time job. And so my salary is only $28,000. It might sound a lot to a kid, but it's not a lot of money in real life. And so I actually have a second job that's a main source of income. Yeah, I work in nonprofits as a nonprofit consultant, basically. And I have to find other places to, strike that balance because I can't have a traditional 9-to-5 job when you're a lawmaker. Because to your question, it is very busy. Yeah. I mean, when we're in session, I'm in Tallahassee Monday to Friday. And I don't decide my schedule. My schedule is decided for me. Yep. So I got to show up to committee meetings. Sometimes they start at 8 a.m. So I got to be in the office by 7 and ready for that 8 a.m. committee meeting. We also get a lot of visitors into the Capitol. So I had one day with 20 visitors, 20 groups that came to my office for a series of 10 to 15 minute meetings of every issue you can think of. So you really have to be informed. You gotta get out of your comfort zone. You gotta have a good memory. Yeah. And so, with that said, I'm also just doing emails. I think people forget.
People forget email is the number one way to have a response.
Right. And it's important because I mean, as I join you today, I got emails I gotta get back to, folks who contact us needing help with things or maybe they have a position on a bill they want me to know about, or they need support for something. Yeah. So constantly just keeping up to date with those who call us and contact us in different platforms. I'm updating social media all the time. Yeah. I'm sure you know what that's like. Oh, yeah. And when I'm not in Tallahassee and I'm back in the district, the constituent services piece is 24/7, but I am able to dive deeper into constituent services when I'm not in the Capitol. But we're also visiting nonprofits in the area. We're attending community events. The weekends, same thing. My weekends are packed with community events. Yeah. So we're just trying to maintain our connection to the community and to let people know that we're here to help.
Okay. So me, myself, I have been trying to learn about government and what it really does. My dad says that they make rules and laws. My mom says that they make programs to help people. My grandpa says that they just take all your money. Can you tell me what government actually does?
Well, I think it's a great question because, everyone has different perspective based on what their experiences have been. And I'm sad to say that I think a lot of people don't have good experiences with government. And I try to redefine that. I try to make it an experience and a relationship of trust and of accountability. So when I think about the role of government, government is here to keep people safe and to support people in living a wholehearted life. I believe firmly that every Floridian deserves the freedom to be healthy, safe, and prosperous. So what role can government play in that? So sometimes it is getting out of the way, right? Sometimes it is don't create unnecessary red tape. Don't, stifle the growth of a business. Don't ignore things like pollution, which impact people's air quality and water quality. So I think it's important that we're using government to support people's growth, not hinder that growth. Yes. And at that same point, government does need money to operate. So I do a lot of tax policy, and my main goal in the Ways and Means Committee is to close corporate tax loopholes while ensuring that we're giving tax breaks directly to people. Because oftentimes when a corporation gets a tax break, the people never actually see it. So I want to make sure that we're also centering our work on the needs of everyday folks. And I'm proud to say one of the bills that took me 5 years to work on was to eliminate the sales tax on diapers.
Really?
Yeah, because believe it or not, Florida was still collecting tax on diapers, which is really, really bad because diapers are not a luxury. Diapers are a necessity.
Yeah.
So we were able to get rid of that tax, and that'll save Florida families. Yeah, but $100 million every year. And so I try really hard to, if government's going to take your money, let's make sure it's spent appropriately.
Yes.
Let's make sure it's spent in a way where you're going to see the benefit of it. And let's ensure that there's also transparency with those decisions. And so I try to break down those barriers and just make government work for people.
Well, can you share a memorable experience from your time in office thus far?
Oh, that's a really great question. I would say one of my most memorable moments was, actually just seeing the inspiration that we're able to build around state government. Because I think that a lot of folks have never really paid attention to Tallahassee. And I love being able to break down those barriers and help folks feel like that they have a say, that they can actually impact positive change. And so I mentioned the diaper tax break bill that we did, and that took us 5 years. But every year we learned something new, right? And every year we brought in new partners, and it was a very collaborative experience. In fact, by the time we were able to get this bill through, we not only had the support of our diaper banks, which are organizations that, collect diapers and donate to families, but we also had support of the AARP because we weren't just talking about children's diapers. We're also talking about adult products, adult incontinence products. And many people with disabilities also need those resources. And so we were able to bring in different organizations that all represent different parts of our community coming together for the same goal. And I think just watching all of that happen and being a part of that was incredibly memorable. And just, of course, being able to go buy diapers at the store and see that there's no tax there, it's like, we did that. We did that. And I think that feeling alone is really memorable. There's part of Florida law that we helped write, and now that's set in statute, and that feels really good.
Yeah. So why should kids care about civics and politics?
Oh my gosh, because you're the future. Kids are the future. That's why, at the end of the day, I'm just keeping this seat warm for the next generation. So it's really important for...
Why do you think I'm doing this?
I love that.
I'm trying to teach kids about different jobs.
I'm so grateful. Well, and more kids need to know that they can do this, right? Yeah. Because I'll tell you, growing up, I had no idea that, I could run for office. That was never something I ever thought of. It wasn't something that I even thought was possible, especially growing up, as a working class kid. And so I do think it's so inspirational for young people, first of all, to see themselves in positions of leadership, to know their vote counts, their vote is important, and to be able to solve problems at a macro level. Each one of us face challenges, and sometimes we might feel isolated. For example, for a kid, it might be you have classmates that are navigating housing insecurity. Maybe they're homeless right now. Yeah. Maybe there's hunger issues. So the only food they have is a food at school. These might feel like isolated problems sometimes, unique to that one kid. Oh, yeah. But the reality is that a lot of kids are experiencing that. And when we talk about it, we're able to identify, okay, this is a larger problem. So what can we do? What can we do about it, right? And I think it's that sense of you can make a difference that I feel like a lot of young people already have that spirit, that energy. But then for someone in my position, I can help unpack the process so you can actually see how your passion can turn to positive change. And I think it starts with that passion, but then if you're willing to understand the system, you can play a pretty big role in making it better.
Okay. Now, here seems like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we are back here talking with Anna Eskamani. Anna is a member of the Florida House Representatives for District 42. Okay, so is there a reason that you just decided to work for District 42, or is that just based on where you live?
It's a great question. It's both. It's definitely based on where you live. as any elected official, you should run where you live. Some people don't do that, which is really problematic. But I'm proud to call Orlando home and live in the Thornton Park area. And so when I was thinking about running for office, there actually were a lot of folks that wanted me to run for other positions. But I really thought about it, and I sought counsel on that, and I spoke to my mentors, and I felt this. I always have felt this passion for the Florida House, because the Florida House is supposed to be the people's chamber. Yeah. It's supposed to be the chamber that's closest to everyday folks, and it wasn't like that as an advocate. I mean, even right now, so many of my colleagues are incredibly wealthy individuals, and they don't always understand what it's like for folks that are struggling. Oh yeah. And so I wanted to restore the Florida House as a place where the needs of constituents are prioritized, not the needs of special interest. And so I just felt like this calling to Florida House. And I'll tell you something else too, Tiberius. The Florida House is kind of like the Wild Wild West. Like there's 120 members, and everyone comes from a different part of the state. So there's a lot of diversity in viewpoint and perspective and lived experiences. And I really wanted to add to that conversation. And I wanted to bring the spirit of Orlando to the legislature. And because the Florida House is also just, it's a hard environment to work in because of all the diversity. It takes time to find common ground, and I wanted to contribute to that effort.
Okay. So how do you balance your responsibilities as a state representative with your personal life?
I don't have a personal life. That's how. Honestly, like, it's so hard to find time. It's challenging. I try to carve out maybe once every 3 weeks, like a time with friends, but it's hard. I feel really blessed to have a twin sister who's also really engaged in advocacy. We live together as well. So I'm constantly surrounded by people that I care about and people who care about me. So I'm really blessed in that way, but it is hard to have a personal life. Like, I've not been on a legitimate vacation really since 2017.
Whoa.
Because even when I travel, I have to work.
Yeah.
And so I have, you should see my luggage. Like, I have my personal laptop, my state laptop, my iPad, my iPhone. Like, when I ever have to take things out for TSA, it's like I'm pulling out all these electronics because I just have to constantly be connected. Even when I'm driving, like if I'm in the passenger seat, I'll be using my hotspot to get work done.
Yeah.
And so every minute I have to really use to get stuff done. But I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to strike that balance. And if you have any tips, let me know, because I'm still trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah. So do you have to do a lot of training or go to college to do this type of work?
I love this question. I don't think there's a specific pathway to run for office. I think that folks of every background should consider it, and it very well can be accessible to folks of every background. Now, are there skills that I think will be helpful in being successful? Absolutely. Yes. I do think that having a college degree, just for the fact that it gives you good research skills and communication skills and critical thinking skills, I think that does help you be a more effective lawmaker and really any, elected official. Yeah. But it's definitely not required. But my path, college was a big part of it, because I first started getting involved in advocacy as a college student. And so I went to UCF as an undergrad. I had a double major. And during my academics, I was able to do a lot of service learning projects. So, for example, I would read about the carceral system and the struggles that folks face when they serve their time and go back into everyday life, trying to find a job, trying to find a place to live.
It's hard to find a job.
100%. And then I would volunteer with local nonprofits like Just for Success, who help women be able to get back into the workforce by equipping them with professional clothing. And I would meet women that were released from incarceration. And so I would be able to study and read about the challenges while then experience it in real life and help women overcome them. And so I credit that understanding, that sense of empathy, that sense of problem solving really to my college background. But by no means do I think a college degree is necessary. I feel like everyone has their own path, and as long as you care about community, as long as you feel like you have something to contribute, if there's issues you care about, then I think running for office is something everyone should consider.
Okay. So to get this job that you had to win an election. Is that hard to do?
Oh, yes. Wait, how old are you right now?
I am 13.
You're 13. Okay. So I first ran for office in 2017. All right.
Yes.
So that's what, like 6 years
7
ago,
years ago.
right? 7 years ago. And so you were like six, right? 6, 7.
Yes,
so you probably don't remember my first campaign.
Well, depends on where in 2017.
Well, I mean, if you're ever watching television during the time,
Yeah.
or if you ever checked the mail during the time you lived in this district, oh my God, my first campaign was so intense. Like, imagine being bullied every single day on television and in the mail. Like, there was 25 pieces of negative mail, like calling me, telling me that I was dangerous around children. Like, do you think I'm dangerous? Like, I feel like I'm a safe person. So calling me all these mean things. 3 negative TV commercials that would, like, I'm not even kidding. It would put me in black and white, and then it would put my opponent in color. It was so funny. It was like trying to make me look like I was scary and dangerous and, like, I don't know, like, I guess monochrome. I have no idea what the point was, but it was really hard. It was really expensive too.
yeah.
So my first campaign, I raised $523,000. I don't think folks realize just the ridiculous role that money plays in
I don't think
politics.
they realized the amount of money that
Oh, it's bad. And we're not talking about Congress. This is a state house seat.
State.
And so it was wild.
It's a
And
state Congress.
right, exactly. It
So-
shouldn't be that expensive. But my
It's that
opponent was
expensive,
very
yeah.
wealthy, so he threw everything at me that he had, and I had to raise money to be able to be competitive. And it was also a targeted raise, which means that the Republican Party of Florida, with the Democratic Party, they were really focused on that seat because I was trying to flip it. So any flip seat gets more attention than others. And so it just meant that there was so many eyes on us. Like, the pressure was really big. And with that said, it was hard, but it was something that I don't, sometimes in life, you don't know you're getting ready for something.
Oh, yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm meant to be here. And it was very kismetic. Like, I felt that you know what, this is hard. I'm having down days, but, like, I have the grit and the grace to get it done. And if you can survive that, honey, you can survive anything. And not only did we win, but we won big. And so it was not an easy race, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my community. I learned a lot about even just forgiveness, right? I'm not taking yourself too seriously, being able to make fun of yourself. Like, I learned a lot in that first campaign, and I've had 3 campaigns in total so far. And so I feel like I continue to grow, every step of the way. And it's very humbling to ask people to support you. It's a very humbling experience. I'll tell you, my first campaign was hard, but I actually think my second campaign was harder, because then you're coming back to your community and asking them to vote for you again, which means you're asking them for approval of what you promised you would do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's even harder than the first one, because the first one you have plans. Second one is like, did you do the plans, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually think that was more challenging and just kind of, again, proving my worth to the community. And I feel really blessed that, folks trust me to do this, have now trust me to do it for 3 terms and hopefully for 1 more term, because we do have
so
term
that
limits.
is 6 terms. Okay.
Well, it's 4 terms,
Well,
2 years
6
each,
years.
6 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm on year 6, but I only have 2 more
Okay.
after this. Assuming I'm reelected this November.
Yeah. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a state representative, and how have you overcome them?
So I mentioned earlier how polarizing, like, our politics are today. I don't think you have to travel that far on your television screen or on your Instagram account, or the radio to see just all the tension in political spaces. So for me, it was helping to define who I am in the process, because so many people had already labeled me as being one way.
Yeah.
So folks had labeled me as being, difficult to work with and, like, being aggressive. And I think a part of it is just because, like, I am a very passionate person. Yeah. By no means does that mean that I have my passion lead to disrespect or lead to bombastic behavior, but I think a lot of folks assume that I would be. And so I came into legislature having to kind of define myself and build trust with people and kind of break that stereotype a little bit, right? I think a part of it too is because I'm a younger lawmaker. Like, I was 28 when I got elected. I'm 33 now. I think there's a lot of assumptions about, like, young people in office not having maturity, not having the ability to work not just across the aisle, but even with different generations of people. And so again, I really wanted to not just prove to myself, but prove to others that like I am a collaborator and I want to solve these problems. And if you want to work with me, let's go. Let's do it. And in fact, the veterans bill that I have right now that just passed this first committee unanimously, my prime co is a Republican, and I really am grateful for that. I'm grateful for the opportunities to work across the aisle. But it was challenging. It is challenging to, constantly have to just prove your worth to others in the process. And so that's something I do. It's a trust that I don't take for granted. I really prioritize building that trust.
Now, see, I try to pay attention. And I don't know if there will be a bill that will ban 16-year-olds and under from using any social media. Is this bill been made into a law yet? And were you for or against it?
It's a really great question. So this is House Bill 1. It's a priority of the Speaker. And to your point, it would ban any access to social media for anyone under the age of 16. I actually voted no on it because I think it goes way too far. And I definitely empathize and agree that, again, we talked about the role of government. Government plays a role in safety. And so there are concerns with youth engagement online where there is predatory behavior, there is bullying, there is issues with body image and self-esteem, mental health, without a doubt. I think there are different ways to approach it than a complete ban, which not only is likely unconstitutional, but it takes away parents' rights. Parents should play a role in making this decision, and I just cannot get back.
Again, this is a worldwide problem.
Right.
It's not just for the or for Florida or just the U.S. It's
100%.
the whole world.
Well, and it just doesn't. It's just it's taking a sledgehammer where there should be a scalpel, right?
Yeah.
There should be a more precise way to approach this, and I just think it goes too far.
Well, will that have a variance for people like me, where my dad manages my account for my business?
It really wouldn't, the way that's written right now. I mean, at the end of the day, it would also require age verification for every user, which is another serious invasion of privacy. Right. And also, what's going to stop kids from like faking IDs? I mean, that's what it's so ironic to me too.
A third of kids already do it.
I know. And so it would absolutely set restrictions. At the end of the day, your account has to be connected to an ID that reflects the account. And I even think it could be against the Commerce Clause, which basically is a federal law around interstate exchanges. So, for example, if you have a business on your Instagram account as someone at the age of 16 and you're doing business with California or a different state, how is this not interfering with your business? And i.e., that would be an offense to the Commerce Clause. So, I if you watch me on the House floor, I asked a lot of questions about this bill because I also wanted to figure out what platforms are actually impacted, and they wouldn't tell me. It was so funny. I kept asking like the question in different ways, and they just wouldn't tell me. And then part of it is because they know it's unconstitutional, and so they're avoiding providing specifics because there will, if this passes as is, there will be a court battle. But Governor Ron DeSantis, who I often disagree with, he actually also expressed concern about the First Amendment on this. So I think the fact that
First Amendment this is gonna be a big one.
Right, exactly. And the fact that he expressed concern and hesitation makes me feel like, all right, maybe this is not gonna pass.
Yeah. So how do you stay connected with the residents of District 42 and make sure that their voices are heard?
Well, it's a good segue because we do use social media as a tool. Social media is a major platform for us and keeping in touch with our constituents and, of course, sharing what we're working on, but also amplifying what their needs are. In fact, one issue most recently, there was a fire at Coalition for the Homeless, which is one of our large homeless shelters in Central Florida, 200 some unsheltered. See, I'm learning that apparently some sort of accident, but I mean, like, it's devastating. It's not even just the fire; it was the suppressant, the sprinklers, right? Damaged everything. So 230 some men don't have a place to sleep right now. So we've been boosting on social media ways to donate to help, right? So we use social media as a
GoFundMe's will help.
yeah,
Just
as a
anything, you know?
a way to communicate needs and
Donate.
ways to take action. Yeah. We also do email blast. I do weekly email blasts about what's happening in the state capitol, what's happening in our community. We do weekly Facebook lives and Instagram lives. So every Friday afternoon, I'll do a live and walk folks through and answer questions in real time. What else do? We do a lot of community events and town halls. So we've actually already scheduled our post-legislative session town hall. We're going to host a town hall in Eatonville as well, alongside a few other communities. So we really do try to make government as accessible as possible.
Okay. So what's the craziest thing that's happened while you were doing your passion?
The craziest thing? Oh my gosh. So I would say that there are really crazy moments that just happen in the legislature. Like even this past week, one of my colleagues referred to another colleague as Lucifer's messenger. And it was like really inappropriate, but also like randomly funny, where it was like, what are you saying? And I mean, there's just so many moments, whenever you have a platform that like gives people a microphone like this, you just don't know what's going to happen. And so the legislature is like a microcosm of like the real world. And it's always so, it's just fascinating because something different can happen all the time. And so there's moments where, I mean, you just have to hold back like laughter because it's so bizarre. And like, it feels like you're in like a Twilight Zone sometimes. Like this can't be real life, is it? Like, I have a bill in front of me right now that deletes the word climate change from all parts of Florida law, which just seems like really unnecessary to me. And again, it's like
It would incomplete sentences.
That too is going to be grammatically wrong, but it's just like, that's not the flex you think it is, right? And so there's all these moments where it's like, guys, what are we doing here? So you almost have to laugh or you're going to cry. Yeah. And so I try really hard to like find the joy even in the absurdity. And that
always look at the positive side.
Yeah, and it helps me survive. It helps me build relationships. And I don't know, I just think laughter is also such an important like way to build relationships with people that are different. So I try to find those moments wherever I can.
So can you provide an example of a situation that didn't go as planned, and what did you learn from that?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, especially in the legislature, there are moments where you don't expect a bill to come back and it comes back. You don't expect your bill to get a hearing. It gets a hearing. You have to be ready for it. In fact, even,
You're ready for anything. Honestly.
You have to be on your toes 100%. But when I think about, things not going as planned, I go back to my campaign experience. On a campaign trail, you always want to have a plan A, B, C, D, right? Yeah. And just be flexible to go with anything. But there definitely have been moments where, like, for example, I was planning to debate one of my opponents. And so I show up at the studio ready to debate her. And then she actually decided not to show up for different reasons. And so at that moment, it's like, well, what do you do, right? Like, how do you communicate this to your audience that, like, we were going to have a debate and then she just canceled it? And so, you have to always be... You have to be thoughtful to how you want to respond to the unexpected, but you also always need to be ready for the unexpected.
Okay, so what message do you want to tell children all over the world about doing the work that you do?
I want children to know that this work needs you, that we need your engagement, that we need your passion, your ideas, that at the end of the day, this is the world that you're inheriting. And so I'm going to do what I can to take care of it, but my intention is to pass it to you. And so I really want kids to be involved right now.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break to pay some bills. And we are back here with a member of the Florida House of Representatives, Anna Eskamani. Now, Anna, what's the favorite part of your day?
The favorite part of my day is, I think, the end of the day when I come home, sometimes 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, and I can sit down and eat something, but also just reflect on how the day went. Yeah. I can update my social media, and I'm also a big news junkie, so I love finally sitting down and just going through my whether it's the Sentinel, the Weekly, NPR, I get to just sit down and process like what's happened throughout the day, so I can get ready for tomorrow.
Okay. Now, we see how people can contact you about needs for the people, but why should a kid contact you?
Oh, there's some reasons why a kid should contact me. First of all, a kid is an expert on the issues that impact their lives. So, for example, maybe you're at school and you are facing a challenge with a subject, or maybe you see that your fellow classmates are struggling, like we talked about earlier, with food insecurity, or maybe you care about gun safety and that's an issue that's important to you. Contacting a state lawmaker can lead to legislation being filed. It can lead to a conversation with the school district.
Yeah.
And so just because you can't vote doesn't mean you shouldn't be civically minded.
Yeah. So what was that one thing that happened in your career that you will never forget?
It's a really great question.
One thing.
One thing in my career that I'll never forget. I don't want to sound cliche, because I do think just winning my first election was a big deal for me. Yeah. I mentioned earlier how I never thought I would ever run for office. It was not something I grew up thinking about. So even just that moment and being able to celebrate that with my sister, my brother, my friends, like I think that was really meaningful to me. But I would also say, just thinking about like the daily grit that is required to do this work. Yeah. That alone is something that I will never forget. Like when I look back of my 8 years in legislature, assuming I get reelected this year, like it's incredible to navigate these environments, especially as a first timer, if you will. Yeah. And so I think that even just your daily experiences are something you should never forget, that you should be really proud of, because every days are hard.
Oh yeah.
And so to be able to get back up in the morning and keep going, I think that alone is quite remarkable for anyone, but especially in my line of work.
Okay. If you could go back and talk to your 13-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that it's going to be okay. I mentioned earlier that my mom passed away when I was 13. So it was a very hard time for me. You never think you're going to lose a parent, especially at that part of your life.
Oh, yeah. And
so for me, it was really difficult. My mom fought cancer for 4 years before she passed away. So if I can go back and talk to my 13-year-old self, I would tell her it's going to be okay. You're going to navigate this, and you're going to be stronger at the end of it. Yeah, you're going to figure it out. There's going to be people that will help you through that too.
So what was the biggest mistake you've ever made? How did it change as a person?
Oh, the biggest mistake I've ever made. So I mean, we've all made like dating mistakes, right? So we've all made bad decisions on that. And how did it change me as a person? Well, I think it helped me understand like what a healthy relationship is. Yeah. And it doesn't just translate to, like an intimate relationship, right? Yeah. Like I think once you have like a bad relationship and you're able to get out of it, which that alone is very brave and courageous, you're able to detect those red flags, whether it's with your friend circle or where, maybe something more serious. And so I feel like those are probably my biggest mistakes. I've made a lot of bad dating decisions over the years. And so now like I have a stronger perspective on like, not just what your needs are, but like what you deserve. And I think that's really important, is no one should ever settle. And I feel like, especially for young people, to give yourself space to learn and grow, and to learn from those experiences so that you can take care of yourself and also take care of those around you in a more meaningful way.
Okay. So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
Okay, so I love Star Wars, and so I'm a big Star Wars fan. And when I was younger, I know there's a lot of Star Wars swag in here, which I love. When I was younger, I used to go to MegaCon and all the Star Wars celebrations. And
MegaCon?
I missed MegaCon this year. I know I was in Tallahassee. I was stuck, but I went to MegaCon last year. I know I went last year. But I have to tell y'all, it's so crowded. It's so crowded. It's hard. You gotta take your time to spend the whole day there, and I just don't have that time right now. But I do love watching from afar. But with that said, I love going to the movies. I love love reading a lot of fiction. I'm a big John Green fan. I love John Green books. And so he wrote The Fault in Our Stars, Looking for Alaska. I mean, it's just an amazing writer. And I also love going to the beach. In fact, one of my favorite places, I haven't been there in a while, is Sebastian Inlet State Park. It's the border of Brevard and Indian River County, and it's such a beautiful lagoon and beach. And so I do hope to go out there at some point because I love being by the water. I just find a lot of comfort by being by the water.
So, do you play video games? And if you do, what is your favorite one?
Okay, so I grew up playing computer games. So I grew up with like LucasArts games, so like Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle. I mean, like Indiana Jones games, Star Wars games, TIE Fighter, and then I think one of the last games I've actually played was Battlefront. And so that's like a Star Wars like first shooter type of game. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't have a lot of time to play games these days, so I don't get to have as much fun as I used to. But
Battlefront's fun.
Battlefront's very fun, and so my brother is still a gamer, so I get a little bit of exposure from him. But even last night, my sister was watching on YouTube like King's Quest clips, and King's Quest was like this adventure series when I was a kid from Sierra. And so she was like just replaying clips from it while we were on at home on a Friday night. Yeah. And so I do have like a lot of fond memories of growing up playing computer games. But don't grow up, Tiberius. Try not to grow up. Growing up is very overrated. And so stay young while you can.
Okay. Now can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid's show. The one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
One story? Okay. I mean, there are many moments where, like, sometimes you just want to you just want to yell at like everyone around you because like people just don't get it. Like I feel like that on the chamber sometimes, like the house floor. And I look up in the sky and I'm just like, Florida, are you here right now? Like, are you listening? It's like, it's just, you feel like this sense of just like, this can't be real. Like someone pinched me. Like this isn't real life. Like he can't be saying that right now about this bill, or he can't be like trying to argue this point with me right now. Like there are these moments where it's just like how is this real life? And I'm such a nice person that like I'm not going to tell someone that they're making me feel this way. I'm someone who compartmentalizes a lot, but there are moments where you just want to yell. Like you just want to be like, why are you doing that? Like, do you hear yourself? You know what I mean? But that would be
that happened so many times in 7th period.
So I can't do that on the house floor because it's a decorum issue, right? So you have to be respectful. But there are moments where like I don't have a poker face, and sometimes the camera lingers on you, and like there's moments people are like, "I saw you make that face. I saw you roll your eyes," and I'm like, "I'm so sorry," like But you do have to be really thoughtful to just like perceptions and optics and all this kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, it can be hard to hide my displeasure at times.
Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
Yeah, I think it's important for folks to know that like you're my boss, right? Like I work for you. And politicians are not untouchable. Like we're very human. Yeah. I live in Thornton Park. I have a day job. I have aspirations. Yeah. Like I'm getting my PhD at UCF right now. Like I have a lot of things happening in my life in addition to my very public facing role. And so to kind of remember that we're all, at the end of the day, like we all come from the same place, right? And we just want to find solutions to solve the problems that we all agree exist. Yes. And so to lead with kindness whenever you can, to call people in before you call them out. You'd be surprised how many times, folks will call me out for something even though we already agreed. But it's like they misread a bill, they didn't understand, maybe a comment that I made, and it's like so much better just to talk to each other versus assume worse intentions. And I think with social media in particular, we're always driven to like assume worse intentions of one another.
Yeah, see, social media has such a bad reputation nowadays.
It does. And just look at any comment section, right? And you see that. And it's
that's the part that sucks.
well, and people like, I think people forget just how important it is to like talk face to face, right? To get to interact at a human level. And I think when you do that, you realize how much we have in common versus what sets us apart.
Well, on that note, what is your Facebook or website for those listeners to follow you?
They can follow us at annaforflorida.com, which is also our handle on all of our social media accounts from Instagram to Facebook. It's Anna for Florida, 2 N's, all spelled out. Definitely keep in touch with us.
Okay. So, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
Well, I think you're going to ask me a math question. Maybe I survived with that one. I was getting my algebra ready for you.
Well, Anna, thanks for being my special guest. Can you stick around for math lines?
Oh, God, sure. Damn. Sorry. Can I say that on the radio?
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Tiberius's favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And thank you, Anna, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we are going to do some more multi-step word problems. My dad is always good at finding new problems for me to solve. Today, we're going to talk about a road trip.
Ooh, okay.
Okay, so Anna here is planning a road trip from Tallahassee to Palm Harbor, Florida. The distance between Tallahassee and Palm Harbor is 240 miles. So she wants to drive at an average speed of 60 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. How long will it take Anna to reach Palm Harbor? Wait, there's more! Okay, if her assistant is going from Palm Harbor to Tallahassee at 40 miles an hour, and they're going to meet somewhere in the middle, how many hours does it take for them to meet?
Okay. So the first question for just me driving, right, would be 4 hours, right? Because 4 times 60 is 240. Okay, so we got that. I know math. Okay, but the second question is a little more complicated. So how fast is the assistant going?
40 miles an hour.
And how fast am I going?
60.
Oh my God. Okay. And we're meeting in the middle? Can you help me with this?
Okay. Well, first, this is a world problem because there are situations where people meet in random places and start leaving at the exact same time. But, we'll solve this one for the sake of math. So, to figure out how long Anna trips will be, it'll use a simple formula. Time equals distance divided by speed. In this case, the distance from Tallahassee to Palm Harbor is 240 miles, and Anna plans to drive at 60 miles an hour, so divide 240 and 60, and,
that's what we did.
4 hours.
Perfect.
And therefore, it will take Anna 4 hours. But my dad wanted to make this hard. So he did exactly that. Because to figure out how long they have to drive in order to meet, he has to write a completely different formula. Mm-hmm. They make T stand for the time, and they both drive. And since they're driving the total same distance, you can say, and a 60 miles an hour.
Right.
Times T plus assistance 40 miles per hour times T equals 240 miles.
Okay.
Now you can add the 60 and the 40 and get
which
100.
Is 100.
Divide it by the 240.
So that's like
2.4.
Okay.
So they'll meet in 2.4 hours, assuming no bathroom breaks. So, Anna, have you driven for that long in one sitting without bathroom breaks?
I definitely have. I think the longest I've driven without bathroom breaks is maybe like 6.5 to 7 hours. Not healthy for your kidneys at all.
So, Anna, my teacher said that I would use math every day. How do you use math in your work?
I use math every day, truly. So statistics are very important in politics, not just in, of course, when you run for a campaign, looking at your own polling data and looking at the number of voters you have and their voting behaviors. But when we're looking at legislation, we're always thinking about evidence-based approaches, which requires data. And data means mathematical
Everything is
formulas. Yeah. So I'm constantly using math my day-to-day.
Well, okay. Thank you so much, Anna, for having me with math corners.
Oh, I'm glad I survived. Thanks for having me.
It's not that bad, is it?
No, it was easy. I was intimidated, but it worked out well.
And now it's time for the heart of the lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of the lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and ability. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. For me, I think integrity is doing what is right even when no one else is looking. The qualities of integrity is honesty, sincerity, truthfulness, and fairness. This week, I was at the dollar store, and, well, when things deal with my money, I have to be responsible and know each of the prices to know exactly how much I'm spending. So I'm buying a few items, and they would be around $10 and knew where they were. So I grabbed my items, and I started to walk to the register. Now, the person who started scanning my items had a little bit of small talk, but then she said the price was $8.76. Like, wait, that's not right. Did you scan all the items? Then she realized I forgot on one item that she bagged. See, I could have gotten one item for free, but that's not right. The teller would have gotten in trouble, so it was important that I paid for all the stuff that I was removing from the store. So she adjusted the price, and I paid my bill in full. And also, probably couldn't have done it with, or saying that with her. So, Anna, did you see her use integrity at all this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Integrity is a really key part of being in the legislature, and unfortunately, not always common in politics. But you always have to be thinking about doing the right thing even when no one knows. And actually, I think some of the best parts of politics are those behind the scenes moments where you're making an ethical decision in the betterment of yourself and your community. Folks might not even know that you did that, but it just shows how much integrity you have. And I think that's fundamental to being in public service.
Mm-hmm. So, of all of the heart of lion virtues, which is the one that you see the most?
For me, I think all of them are so important and beautiful. I really do also appreciate just the qualities of leadership, because I do think that leadership rises in moments of uncertainty, and it's really uncertain out there right now. So each one of us need to be strong leaders for our community.
That's true. We should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Anna Eskamani for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking to you today. I think we learned a lot about being a member of the House of Representatives and how that work helps shape the future of our community.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful, and I can't wait to come back.
Okay. Do you mind giving your social media and website again?
For sure. It's at Anna for Florida on all social media accounts and annaforflorida.com.
Also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 1490 AM, KNT 98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air my show. Please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Anna, how did you subscribe yet?
I'm going to do it right now.
Okay. And leave me a comment if you want to get into political field. Also, be sure to watch next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius